Today, we're digging into something really practical, mastering English speaking, especially if you're prepping for the IELTS exam. Our mission, we're going to break down a real example of an IELTS speaking Part 3 answer. We'll pinpoint its strengths, its weaknesses, and hopefully arm you with some actionable strategies to level up your own English communication. We've got insights from an experienced examiner, plus a Band 7 plus sample answer, really to show you exactly where you should focus your energy.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here, I think, isn't just about passing a test. It's how we can take this specific language assessment scenario and pull out some universal lessons for just clearer, more effective communication, in any situation. We'll definitely look at common pitfalls, sure, but maybe more importantly, we'll give you some concrete ways to improve that you can actually apply day to day.
Okay, let's set the stage then. For IELTS speaking Part 3, the questions, they kind of shift gears, don't they?
They do.
They get more abstract. They ask you to discuss broader issues, really develop your opinions. It's not just yes or no.
Exactly. It's about the why and the how.
Right. Digging into the nuances. So, here's a pretty common question, one that makes you think a bit. Do you think people today rely too much on technology in their daily lives? Why or why not? It definitely sparks a lot of debate, that one. So, we're going to play a real candidate's response now. As you listen, maybe think about how you might tackle it. What points would you make? What kind of words would you use?
Okay.
Let's hear what the candidate actually said. Do you think people today rely too much on technology in their daily lives? Why or why not?
Yes, I think so. Nowadays, most of people using a variety of technologies to gain several benefits. And they tend to use too much those technologies, such as AI, generative AI, or internet provided services. So it's useful and convenient, but it causes decreasing human abilities. So I think nowadays we tend to rely too much on technologies.
Right, so we've heard the answer. Expert, what's your first reaction? What kind of jumps out at you straight away? Okay, thanks for sharing that. Well, this short answer, it does give a clear opinion, and it includes some examples, which is, a good start, a solid foundation. It's actually a very common starting point for lots of learners, and that's fine. It gives us clear things to work on. The basic message, it's understandable. But to really move beyond just being understood, we're looking for more precision, maybe more naturalness, a bit more depth. There's definitely an attempt to use some good vocabulary, which is great, words like benefits, convenient. But the execution, well, it sometimes stumbles a bit on grammar and sentence structure.
Okay, so if someone's listening and maybe thinking, yeah, that sounds a bit like me, what are the main areas they need to focus on to push that kind of answer up a level?
Right. Well, if we look at the big picture, we can probably outline 5 key problem areas. These often hold learners back, and they're pretty clear in this answer we just heard. First up is grammar. Things like article mistakes, most people versus most of people, subject-verb agreement issues sometimes, and just some phrasing that sounds a bit awkward, not quite natural.
Okay, grammar. What's next?
Second, vocabulary. Now, there are words there, but some choices feel slightly unnatural, maybe not the best fit for the context. It's about finding the precise word, not just any word that kind of works.
Precision. Got it.
Third, sentence structure. There's a bit of reliance on simpler patterns, like repeating so a lot. This limits the variety, the complexity you hear in higher level English. And actually, using more complex connectors, it isn't just about sounding fancy. It sort of forces your brain to structure thoughts more logically, which helps build a stronger argument.
That's a good point. Number 4.
Fourth is coherence. The ideas themselves are present, but they don't always link together smoothly. It can feel a bit, choppy, like train cars that aren't quite coupled correctly. You want smooth transitions.
Right, making it flow.
Exactly. And finally, number 5 is development. The answer, frankly, is a bit short for part 3. It needs more explanation, more examples. A really common mistake for, say, band 5 or 6 speakers isn't just grammar, it's failing to expand on their points. And that's super important in part 3 because this section tests your ability to discuss abstract ideas in depth. You need to elaborate.
Okay, so grammar, vocabulary, sentence structure, coherence, and development. We've identified the issues. But the tricky part is fixing them, right? How do we start correcting these? Can we look at specifics?
Exactly. That's where the real learning happens. Let's take some specific phrases from the candidate's answer and see how just a small tweak can make a big difference, make it sound more natural, more accurate, and push towards that higher band score.
Okay, great.
So let's start with most of people. The issue here is article use. Most of usually needs something like the or a pronoun after it. Most of the people, most of them. The simple fix, just say most people. Much more natural, much more common.
Okay, most people. Simple enough. What else?
Then there was to gain several benefits. Understandable, yes, but it sounds a little formal or maybe slightly stiff for speaking. More natural options would be to enjoy many advantages, or maybe even just to benefit from it. Can you hear how they flow a bit better?
Yeah, they do sound smoother.
Right. Next one, use too much those technologies. Here, the word order's just a bit off. In English, adverbs like too much, they usually come after the noun phrase or at the end. So the fix is use those technologies too much. Subtle, but it helps the fluency.
Use those technologies too much, got it.
Then we heard, it causes decreasing human abilities. Now, decreasing use like this feels awkward. A much more polished and academic-sounding way to say this is, it leads to a decline in human abilities. Using decline as a noun there sounds more precise.
Leads to a decline.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds much better.
And finally, that repetition. So I think nowadays, using so, again, to start the conclusion feels a bit clunky and, well, repetitive. For better flow, maybe something like, therefore, I believe that people today depend too heavily on technology. See, therefore signals a logical conclusion, and depend too heavily is just a slightly more sophisticated way of saying rely too much.
Those are really helpful, specific fixes. But it makes me wonder, expert, when someone hears these corrections, what's maybe the biggest mistake they might make when trying to actually use them? Is there a common pitfall?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think the biggest pitfall is probably trying to just memorize these specific corrected phrases in isolation, like flashcards. What you really want to do is internalize the principle behind the fix. Was it an article rule? Was it word order? Was it a more natural collocation? Then practice that principle in different sentences, different contexts. Don't just parrot the fix, and honestly, don't be afraid to try it out and maybe make a new mistake. That's genuinely how you learn and make it stick.
That makes a lot of sense. Focus on the why behind the fix, not just the what. Okay, so we've heard the original answer, we've taken it apart with these detailed corrections, but what does a really strong answer actually sound like? One that hits that band 7 or higher mark using these kinds of improvements.
Right, let's listen to a model answer for the same question. As you listen, pay attention to the structure, the choice of words, how the ideas connect. You'll hear how the developed ideas, the coherence, the vocabulary, and the grammar all come together. Here it is. Yes, I do think people today rely too much on technology in their daily lives. For example, many people now use smartphones, AI tools, or online services for even the simplest tasks, like setting reminders or getting directions. While these tools are certainly convenient and can save time, I believe they may reduce our ability to think critically or solve problems independently. In the long term, this overdependence could negatively impact our mental agility and social interactions. So, although technology brings many benefits, we need to be careful not to become too reliant on it.
Okay, yeah. Listening to that, the biggest thing that jumps out at me is just how much more, well, natural it sounds. It flows like a real thought process, not just a checklist of points. What do you think are the key things making it sound so cohesive? Especially thinking about the vocabulary used there.
You've absolutely hit on it. Vocabulary is crucial. Not just having words, but using the right words to express more nuanced ideas. That's key for higher scores and, frankly, just for better communication overall. Let's highlight a few key words from that sample answer. They're really useful for this topic, but also just good words to have in your toolkit. First, rely on. Means to depend on something, like, I rely on my phone alarm. A good synonym is depend. Simple, but important.
Okay, rely on.
Then, convenient. Makes life easier, more comfortable. The tip about thinking of a convenience store fast and easy that helps cement the meaning.
Convenient, yep.
Overdependence, that's a great one. It means excessive reliance. That prefix over, meaning too much, is super useful. Think, overwork, overeat, overthink, instantly boosts your vocab.
Overdependence, I like that one.
Mental agility, basically thinking quickly and clearly, like someone solving puzzles fast in their head. That's mental agility.
Right, sharp thinking.
Artificial intelligence, AI. Obviously key today. Computer systems simulating human thought. Good to be comfortable talking about AI, even simply. Like, AI helps, but it can't replace human connection. Next, decline. A gradual decrease. You hear it often. A decline in standards. A decline in health. It suggests a downward trend.
Decline. Got it.
And finally, benefit. A good result, an advantage. And the tip about collocations words that go together is vital, like benefit from technology. Learning chunks like that makes your English sound way more natural.
Benefit from. Okay, great list. So we've seen the original, the corrections, the Band 7+ example, and some key vocab. What does this all mean for you, the listener? How can we compare the beginner approach and the advanced one using the actual IELTS criteria? Seeing them side by side might make it clearer where to focus.
Absolutely. Doing a direct comparison really highlights the progression and what examiners are actually listening for. So if we look at lexical resource, which is basically a vocabulary, a beginner answer might use simple words, like we heard, use too much. The advanced Band 7+ answer uses a range of more precise words like overdependence or decline. It's about specificity and showing you have options, not just using basic terms.
So more precise words.
Oh, yes. Then grammatical range and accuracy. A beginner often sticks to simple sentences. Maybe correct, but basic. An advanced speaker uses more complex structures, different clauses, varied tenses, showing they have more control over the language, and importantly, uses them accurately.
More complex sentences, used correctly.
Next, coherence and cohesion, how the ideas link. The beginner might overuse simple connectors like so, making it sound a bit jumpy. The advanced answer uses better linking words and phrases while, although. In the long term, creating a smoother logical flow between ideas.
Better transitions. Makes sense.
And finally, fluency and development. Fluency isn't just speed, it's speaking smoothly. The beginner answer was quite short, not very developed. The advanced answer is much fuller. It gives examples, explains the reasoning, really explores the topic. That development is key for part 3.
Right. Explaining the why and how we talked about earlier, that comparison is really clear. Thank you. So for someone listening who's maybe just starting out or feels a bit stuck in that beginner or intermediate stage, what are some really practical, actionable steps they can take, like right now, to start moving towards that more advanced level?
Yeah. Practical steps are key. Theory is one thing, applying it is another. Okay, here are 5 things you can genuinely start doing today. First, actively try to avoid repeating simple connectors like so. It's such a common habit, almost like a verbal tic sometimes. Make a conscious effort. Learn alternatives, therefore, as a result. Consequently, on the other hand, just having a few options makes a big difference.
Okay, swap out so. Good tip.
Second, use specific examples. Don't just say technology is bad or good. Explain how. Explain why. Instead of AI helps, maybe, AI helps analyze data quickly, but relying on it for, say, navigation might weaken our own sense of direction. See, more detail.
Give concrete examples.
Right.
Third, focus on collocations. Those word partnerships. Don't just learn rely and technology separately. Learn rely on technology. Learn technological advancement, digital tools. Learning words in chunks makes you sound much more natural.
Learn word chunks, not just single words.
Fourth, practice sentence expansion. Don't just give your opinion and stop. Try a simple structure. Opinion first, then explanation. Why do you think that? Test, example or result. This forces you to develop your ideas more fully.
Opinion, explanation, example. Got it.
And fifth, and this one's maybe the most powerful, honestly, record yourself speaking and then listen back.
I know. Nobody likes hearing their own voice initially.
Yeah, it can be cringy.
It really can. But it's so valuable. Listen for those repeated words, the ums and ahs, the awkward phrases. Pinpoint your specific habits. Then try rephrasing those bits more smoothly. That self-correction cycle is gold.
Record and review. Okay, 5 really solid practical tips there. Wow, what a deep dive that was. We started with just one IELTS question and a short answer, and we've unpacked so much specific grammar fixes, vocabulary building, coherent strategies, development techniques. It really shows how analyzing even a small piece of language can give you a huge amount of insight into improving your overall spoken English.
Absolutely. And remember, everyone listening, improvement really is a journey. It's about continuous learning, yes, but also continuous application. The things we talked about today, they go way beyond just the IELTS exam. They'll help you communicate better, in, pretty much any situation, work, study, social life.
Definitely. Being able to articulate your thoughts clearly, connect ideas logically, use precise language, it really does open doors, give you confidence. It's an investment in yourself, truly. Okay, so time for your final provocative thought to mull over. Building on that last tip, how could you apply that sentence expansion technique, opinion, explanation example to something really simple you said or thought today? Maybe about your breakfast or a TV show you watched. Try expanding it out loud. Make it more detailed, more impactful. Give it a try. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.